Can you say like that?
I know what a character is.
No, that was.
All right. If you don't have your word of the day sheet out right now, you're gonna miss the definition. But for the rest of you, it is a joke exploiting the different possible meanings of a word. A joke exploiting the different possible meanings of a word. A joke exploiting the different possible meanings of a word. So a pun is like, a pun is when a word in the English language has different meanings. Usually one meaning is like a little bit more slang related, and one meaning is a little bit more like, is more of the dictionary denotation. But in order to make a joke out of it, you're kind of like calling to mind both the meanings of the word at once, right? So these are like very stereotypical dad jokes. Dads make puns. That's how it goes. So it says, I'm afraid, here's an example. I'm afraid for the calendar. Its days are numbered. All right. Numbered is the pun there because you're saying that the calendar has numbered days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you are also saying its days are numbered, which is an idiom that means that it's going to die soon. So you say, I'm afraid for the calendar. Its days are numbered. How about this? Why do fathers take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing? In case they get a hole in one. Yeah, so a hole in one in golf is a hole in one, but you might get a hole in your sock. So the pun is hole. How about this? Have you heard about the chocolate record player? It sounds pretty sweet. Because sweet can also be used for, you know, good things. What did the ocean say to the beach?
Nothing. They just
Nothing. It just waved. Yeah, exactly. All right. We are going.
I see what you did there.
They're Laffy Taffy jokes. We are going to be reading a excerpt. We're going to be reading an excerpt today. We're going to be reading an excerpt that uses the following pun. It doesn't say this exactly, but this is the example. Nebraska is a. Okay, I need everyone to quiet down. Nebraska is a square state. This is from the excerpt that we're going to be reading today. So that's your example. All right. So this is an excerpt that's talking about the Midwest. And the pun is right here with square. What can square mean? It can mean shape, right? But then what else can it mean? Yeah, no.
Like doesn't budge. It's kind of.
Yeah.
Like it's just really stubborn.
Stubborn and boring. If you say somebody is a square, like you're like, hey, we're all going to the party, but Dr. Bort's real square. It's like 1950s terminology, but basically you're saying.
That's like
That's why they say that.
Elsa and Weenie. There we go. Yeah, square. Yeah.
You know, before they were like the animation up, they made like a printer to have square face, which starts out super like boring and stubborn. And I remember that other kids say that he's like round and like happy and stuff.
I love that. It's a caricature. Exactly. Yeah, Lexi.
is the square kind of also mean like obese? Not obese, obtuse? Kind of like that's a triangle. Kind of no like I mean more like
Yeah.
like dumb, closed-minded.
I think closed-minded. Yes. Yeah.
Not obese.
Obtuse. Yeah. Obtuse in the way that like it's not saying that like they're
Not they're
slow-witted,
stupid,
but
they're just, like-
closed-minded. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What I want you to do now is write down the effect of using a pun here. Calling Nebraska a square state. What's the effect of the pun? Why would someone choose to use a pun in that way? What are they trying to suggest about Nebraska? You're thinking about why they would use a pun to say this certain thing about Nebraska.
So for this next part, if you're working from home, we're looking at American Gothic. I'm not going to share my screen because it's kind of awkward. Well, you know what, I can do it. I'm gonna share my screen, but you can also find this on Canvas.
Okay, we're done with word of the day. And then everyone needs one piece of paper. Just to give you this line. You've never seen it.
It's American Gothic.
We all had to draw it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. We are naturally, and I've mentioned this a few times, we are naturally really good at interpreting images. We're surrounded by images all the time. We communicate in images often. So we sometimes have the natural ability to talk and write about images. Even if you've never taken an art history class, even if you don't know the references here, you can still talk about the image. So what I want you to do on that blank piece of paper is I want you to just write down a list of things. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Write down as many things that you notice in the picture that you can. So you're thinking about aesthetic things, thinking about colors and spacing and blocking and perspective, all of that. What do you notice about this picture? And just writing it down in 2 minutes.
Can I write about its name too?
Yes?
Can I write about like?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you're writing as many things that you notice about the picture in 2 minutes, just making a list. Okay. All right. Tell me about some of the things, raising your hand, that you notice in this picture. Axel?
The focus is brought to the man because the lady's staring at him and
Okay, good. So the lady her gaze is kind of going this way, right? And he's looking directly at us. So that's one of the ways that the picture makes us focus on the guy. Yeah, no.
So, even though there's a lot of things that I kind of said that it makes me focus on, like, basically nothing. The girl's necklace is the brightest part of this whole picture.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, that kind of draws your attention because it's brighter. But, like, the way where it's placed, like, I mean, it's on her neck, you know, so it's like the black and white. So there's like, basically, I think the point of this picture is that they're so like dismal, like plain, that there's nothing truly to focus on. Because I kind of said like, I know the name of the picture is American Gothic, and the Goths were savage barbarians, you know, but these people are like plain and docile. So to me, that's like a juxtaposition of like Gothic.
Okay, good, good. So everything about them is so plain. Their clothes are neutral colors. They're dark. Their faces are like very beige looking, not a lot of pink in their faces. And so what we really sort of zero in on is this one tiny piece of decoration that she is wearing. Yeah, Ben?
One thing I noticed is like the sky is like completely uniform. There's like
not a cloud in the sky, you know, it is just like this pleasant blue color. I look at that blue and I think it is exactly 70 degrees. You know, like it's just completely neutral. Lexi?
Very similar to what Noah said about how like they're very, very simple. But it seems like the whole picture kind of has the vibe of this. I use the words like faded in a way.
Yeah.
It's not very vibrant. Like even though these people are like, you know, they joke to have this lifestyle kind of like, you know, wear these darker colors, but like even the things around them, like they're the red barn in the back, that's faded. The sky is typically the sky is a little bit brighter blue than that.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like everything's a little bit faded. And I don't know if that's like a choice that the artist made or
Yes.
if that's just how he painted it. But I just thought that was kind of interesting because to me that's also by the way he's staring into my soul.
Yes.
It kind of gives me like this creepy vibe, especially because he told me the pitchfork
Yes.
directly at me.
Yes, we are. So our gaze is directed towards him, maybe because he's taller, maybe because he's like looking right at us. But really the center of the frame is this pointy object that looks like it could hurt us, right? Is this pitchfork.
Have you read the other?
Yes.
That reminds me like.
Yes, yeah. Maybe that's where the creepiness is coming from. Yeah. Noble?
So I feel like it kind of comes like across
Yeah.
on the edge. And
What-
like, it almost like it looks like what's it the one like blue
Okay.
modernized kind of.
So do you get that from the pitchfork specifically, or why do you think he looks like he's ready to fight?
His pitchfork with his like
Yeah.
he wouldn't carry around his gun like openly like like if we're openly carrying around the gun,
Yeah.
then it probably shows that you're any other ready for like some sort of threat or be like ready to defend, like,
Yeah, good. So it's like the way that he's positioned the pitchfork, we see his hand here, like bringing it forward, whereas his wife is kind of like slightly behind him. I assume it's his wife. They look like brother and sister too. Who knows? Let's say it's his wife. That he has the pitchfork like in front of her. It feels defensive, and then the way he's gazing right at us feels like a challenge. There's no smile or anything. It is just like piercing. Athena? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So like the natural habitat here is without detail, right? Whereas they are very detailed. And if you could even see it like on my computer, it's even a little bit better because through the projection, we lose some definition. They're very realistic. Cameron.
It's like a, even though there's no
Yes. Awesome. Yes, they're so rounded, like in her face, in his face, they're rounded. He's got like he's bald, so we get the round here. She has like a completely like round, no sort of like, I don't know, bumps in the hair like sticking up. So we get this like very rounded feel to them. And in the background, it's all sharp, except for the natural habitat, which is then rounded again. So it's these contrasts between the edges. Taya? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So it's like this stiff posture that they have that makes them seem like intractable, like they're not going to be changing, they're going to be evolving or adapting to things. Noah?
Well, a couple things. First, I feel like the man's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
like he's just so whistle.
I just looked it up, that's his daughter.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No, I'm sorry, I was just saying that.
Yeah, we don't want to keep calling it his wife then. Okay.
Right, but like also, so to me, there are 4 layers in this picture, and it's a pitchfork, the people, the housing, and then the background.
Yeah.
And to me, it looks spiky round, you know, kind of thing. Like
Yes.
there's 4 different pieces of it. And also, has anyone else noticed like the pitchfork is also on his shirt? Like his shirt has pitchforks on it.
Right here. Yeah. Okay, cool. So he's like embodied the pitchfork.
Embodiment of like.
I'm writing that down. That is awesome.
That's the thing no one was ready to talk about. The man is made out of pitchforks.
Awesome. Abby?
I think like another, like even when he is looking into your eyes, you still like don't really know what you're gonna see or like what's gonna give you. Because like the pitchforks makes him seem intimidating, but he's also bold.
Yeah.
So you're like, what are you doing, old man? You know. But then at the same time, like his eyes look distant, like they're almost looking at you, but there's not enough definition in his eyes.
Yes. Okay. So there's like, it kind of feels then that it creates this distance through his like lack of expression and his sort of neutral gaze where yes, the pitchfork feels threatening, but that contrast, there's some irony here that he's so old and looks like kind of feeble, but that he's upright. And so it's kind of scary again. And that his gaze is not like quite challenging. There's something that feels like incomprehensible about it. Yeah.
Another thing is the Starbucks logo. They purposely changed one of, it's not, like if you look at it, it's not the same on both sides of the face.
Oh, interesting.
For me, they added a little like line around the eyes. Because it makes it look like more realistic, even though Starbucks logo is not realistic. So they did that with his eyebrows. Like if you look at where his eyebrow arches, one is way longer than the other, and it helps to like show like the, I guess there is like the side lines coming from this side. Specifically, and that's why you see like that woman, like her face is turned.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. So what feels to be very washed out and faded, like Lexi said, actually does have some definition through where the sun is positioned, but it's just like slight. It's not that much. It doesn't feel like it feels like they're standing out from their environment rather than a part of their environment so much in that way. Yeah, Maxwell.
One thing I was is that it almost looks like the girl is concerned with what the guy is going to do. It's more like I don't want him to do something he's gonna regret or something.
Yeah, okay, good. So she is eyeing him because maybe he is, like I said, Abby said, he is kind of incomprehensible and she's worried about it. One more thing I want to point out is this window back here. This is part of why it's called American Gothic. That is done in the Gothic style. So what ends up looking, it's an architectural style that is really ornate and has a lot of different characteristics associated with it. But what it ends up looking like is kind of like a church behind them. We know it's their house, but this kind of window is usually a window that adorns a church. So it looks like their house is kind of becomes this like kind of sacred space for them. Part of the reason that he did that was because he was parodying, to use one of our vocabulary words, Flemish paintings. So this is not specifically the one that he is parodying, but he did try to use kind of similar, you look at their facial shapes and how he chose to paint them and how their faces are kind of like glowing in the light. He chose to sort of copy some stuff that he saw in Flemish painting, which was often of nobility or of religious figures.
Don't they always just like parody Flemish? Like, you know, flamingo means people from Flemish.
No, why would flamingos be like, because they're so
Because
upright?
They're so like they just look so royal and like regal because they're bright colors and these like.
Oh,
staring like this.
interesting.
So when the Spanish conquistadors first got here, it was a joke. It was like, oh, look, it's the people from Fleming. Like, look, they're here.
That's so weird.
Like,
I
that's
love
so-
Flemish art though.
So
I think it's,
technically the word flamenco come from like the same.
I
word.
did not know that. Yeah. Okay, so this is when you Google, and this is how I was reminded of this painting. When you Google Midwestern art, this is the first thing that comes up. This artist said that this piece was supposed to be satire. It was supposed to be kind of mocking. He's from Ohio, so mocking his own people. It would have been Horatian satire, the nice kind, but it's kind of like mocking the people from the Midwest while also showing respect for the people from the Midwest. It kind of has both of those qualities to it. You guys listed so many specifics from this picture. The pitchfork being centered, where their placement is, what the light looks like, what the colors look like. You were able to get into details of this. And I think part of our challenge with writing rhetorical analysis is we want to be able to do that with words as well as we do with images. We want to be able to look at a word and understand the tone as well as you could look at a color and understand the tone right away. So to help us practice this, I want you to write a paragraph about American Gothic. Remember that in order to write a paragraph, it needs to be narrowed down. So you're going to first answer the question. What is one quality this painting is highlighting? I didn't write this. I didn't use great grammar here. What is one quality this painting is highlighting about the Midwest? You can think about the Midwestern people, all the things that you were saying about adaptability or threat or whatever. What's one quality? And what is one artistic aspect of the painting that is highlighting that quality, is emphasizing that quality? So for example, you might say this painting is showing us that people from the Midwest are vaguely threatening. And then you would say, the reason that I think that is true is because the way the pitchfork is centered in the middle of the frame. Yes. Right yesterday. Yeah. I want to say it's like grist or something like that. No, last name.
Like, has every right to make fun.
Oh, Grant. Grant Wood. I was totally wrong. Okay, his name's Grant Wood. So this is your topic sentence, is what's one quality the painting is highlighting about the Midwest, plus one artistic quality that you see in the painting. So go ahead and write yourself a topic sentence.
Is it a piece of himself?
Oh, no, it's,
It showed a picture.
yeah, it's not, it's somebody else.
I don't know if you know.
Like, even if it's like the smallest little, even if it's like the smallest. There you go, right there. Wow, it's always.
Well, it's his sister and their dentist.
Who did that?
Wow. So that's the artist's dentist and that's the artist's sister, and they actually in real life are not related at all.
He doesn't look like he could be a dentist. He looks like he could be a horse dentist. And like, lots of teeth, but.
And this is the fiction of sort of in general, satire, stereotype of people. So what do you think the stereotype is? That is such a-
Okay, so again, your topic sentence is combining your answer to these two questions. I will do it up here while you are doing it on your paper. One sentence for your topic. Yes, you're just right. Okay, so here would be my example. I said American Gothic paintings are. Oh, no, I'm not sure. I think paintings are in quotations. I'm not sure. I'll look it up. American Gothic uses the juxtaposition of religious and natural imagery to suggest that Midwesterners are stubborn. So I've got my one strategy. I've got my one observation about Midwesterners. My one, I'll say it this way, my one artistic aspect and my one observation. Yeah, I need to talk about pitchfork and what is the pitchfork.
I said that the Midwest is maybe agricultural culture. They said it's uniform.
Yeah, so you're talking about the man's physical structure.
Shows that he. Then I was like, where do they go? Oh, they're gone.
Yeah,
Right. Look at the colors. No, I wasn't with you. No, you're all thinking about my lockers. So, like, outside Joe Ryan,
okay, once you've got that topic sentence, now you're gonna try and write the whole paragraph. Now, here's the trick. You guys have had a lot to say about the painting. You've pointed out a lot of different aspects, but in your paragraph, you are only talking about the aspect that you pointed out in your topic sentence. So I, in mine, am gonna write a whole paragraph about what the juxtaposition of religious and natural imagery looks like. And then I'm gonna show how that proves that these guys are stubborn. So if you did, oh, the pitchfork is in the center, you're gonna talk about what that pitchfork looks like in the center of the frame, how it affects the audience viewing the painting, and then why it proves a certain thing about Midwesterners, right? So you're gonna write your whole paragraph now.
Forget about my big picture. What do you think?
order to fill up the whole paragraph, if you're just talking about a pitchfork, for example, you gotta use lots of details about that pitchfork.
Hi, we're from Mr. Tanner's class and we're selling the muffins for Hearts of Gold. So
Does anyone want a muffin?
it's 2 for 1 and $3 for 2. We take Venmo too.
What kind of muffins?
A lot. We got vanilla chocolate, normal chocolate, poppy seed, blueberry.
I'll buy poppy seed. I have no.
Or chocolate. Like all chocolate. All right, we got some. All right. How many expenses? $3? $2.
Nice.
I'll pay $1, can I get one?
I just pay you back.
He's good at math.
Thank you. Yo. That would be great. I get that one.
Upstairs.
I woke up today.
Oh, Ghana.
Okay, even if you got a muffin, you got 4 more minutes. So you're trying to write a whole paragraph about just the one artistic quality and the one characteristic you think it highlights.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks, see ya.
So is it okay that I went to his pitchforks and stuff like that? That's part of it.
Yeah, I think that it's not as narrowly focused as if you're just talking about one. But what you do is you write you tie one, which narrowly focused on just this one aspect.
That's what part. Okay, cool. That was kind of.
Yep.
Like when I started, I was like, I didn't know it was supposed to be about just as an eyeglass.
Right, right. So I think you do a good job. Okay, you have 2 minutes. Wrap up your paragraph.
I have no apps open. What is
Okay, now
happening?
you have to do the dance.
I clicked close all apps. What is happening?
I was waiting for it to get to the part where it
We're gonna get it all together. I don't.
You see that? I clicked close all apps. It closed all the apps.
Let's do the paragraph. Imagine if you got to the rest of the website.
Okay. Finish up the sentence you're writing. It's okay if you're not completely done with the paragraph. And then let's do a little bit of a peer review with what you've written so far. So find someone to exchange your paragraph. Yes, and everyone has to say, mine's so bad, and then so I can keep everyone's handwriting and all that. Okay, so just stop where you are in the writing. You got as far as you could. Now exchange it with somebody, even if it's not done with the sentence. Just make sure you don't have yours in front of you. All right, first we're going to evaluate their topic sentence. So read their topic sentence and decide if it contains both of these things. Give them a comment on their topic sentence. Is it good? Is it narrow? Does it set up the argument well? Is it interesting? Or none of those things? And right to decide why not. Okay. Okay, you're writing a comment to the side of their topic sentence to let them know what you think of it. It's not perfect.
What if the paging doesn't do anything?
Oh,
What if the paging
She put on Ben's stand. Yeah, he was like, hey guys, I want to paint you. They're like, why? He's like, just do it.
We have that afternoon.
I've always wanted to paint you. I just can't express how much I want to paint all of you.
Put on this, hold this picture.
You want me to what?
In your hand.
Okay, if you're working at home, you're gonna have to do this part on your own. So comment on your own topic sentence.
Okay, everyone has a comment written about the topic sentence, right? If you just wrote good topic sentence, you need to explain why. Because this helps them but it also helps you understand what needs to go in a topic sentence. And that's why you're giving them a little comment about why it's a good one. Okay, now you are going to read the rest of the paragraph and you're going to comment. You're going to focus your comments on two things. We're not worried about their grammar right now. We are worried about like the actual content of it. So one, you're going to talk about the physical details. Do they describe the details from the painting in a way that actually adds to their analysis? So if they just say, oh, you know, they're wearing very neat, clean clothes. Do they actually describe what that looks like? Oh, he's wearing a black jacket and it's, you know, a white shirt and the white of their collar is like perfectly starched. Like, do they give enough physical description to make the analysis interesting, basically? So you're commenting on the physical details and you are commenting on the analysis. Do they connect physical detail with observations of the characters? So if they do say, oh, the color is stark white, do they connect that to some observation about what that means about her? Okay, so give them a few comments, read their paragraph, give them a few comments to the side about those two things.
Okay, we're gonna move on to talking about the Marquardt excerpt that I gave you on the Canvas page.
Okay, when you're done, you can give that back to the person. Okay, now I want, so hand it back. And I want you now verbally tell them what is one thing they can do to make their paragraph better. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I do connect. Okay.
The projector was moving.
All right, let's refocus. So there's a metaphor I like to use with good paragraph structure that maybe you've seen before, which is that a good paragraph is like a hamburger. This is a hamburger, don't worry.
Oh. What's the middle thing?
This is a patty. This is like tomatoes and pickles. This is like the one. Okay.
I'm not eating it.
All right. So, okay, you need all of these things to make it a good hamburger. So up here, you've got your topic sentence. If you didn't have a topic sentence, it's an open-faced sandwich. It's not a burger, right? The topic sentence is really like defining what the whole paragraph is going to be. You need details here. So I'm going to call this the direct evidence. If you don't have direct evidence, you could technically still have a paragraph. Like you could have a paragraph that is just meat and bun and no condiments and no topics and toppings, and you could do that, right? But it's not a very appetizing hamburger. It's like, it's for basic people, right? All the toppings is what makes the hamburger delicious. The meat part, this is your commentary and analysis. This is the most important part of your paragraph. Here is where you are commenting on the direct evidence and you are saying, here is what the argument of my paragraph is all about. Here's how the direct evidence leads me to conclusions. And that's the important part. And then the bottom bun is like your concluding sentence. Your concluding sentence, I think, mostly you feel this, you just feel like, okay, yeah, I have wrapped everything up. But one way of thinking about it is you want to kind of recall what you said in your topic sentence and revisit that a bit. Not so much that you're repeating the topic sentence, don't be boring, but you are kind of like reminding your reader that ultimately this is where I was going all along in this paragraph. And you want to feel like at the end of the paragraph, you could do a little mic drop. Like, okay, yep, now you believe me. You know, I have nothing left to say on this topic. Yeah.
So like a burger, is there stuff you can just like add on to it, you know, like that's not necessary, but like if there's something that helps, you know, like such a like sausage. Maybe some people like-
Yeah, we could add this, like if you had ketchup, that makes good transitions between all of your sentences, or
Please put cheese in there.
What about fried sauce?
What about lettuce?
I always
this is
prefer-
lettuce.
Yeah.
Can you
Oh,
tell?
God. That's a lot of sauce.
Yeah, I mean, you can make it the way you want, but I think ultimately these are the things that you need to have in your analysis paragraph, right? And like I said, I think we're doing pretty decently identifying what works in images. We need to be able to transfer this more to our writing. I think you guys have started doing this. Your rhetorical analyses are getting better and better. But let's practice how you would write a good solid paragraph in this. So I've passed out a prompt. It's the white paper. No, well, kind of. All right, this is from the AP test 2010. I really like this one because it uses some satire, but it ends in earnestness. So if you catch that she's sort of making fun of certain aspects of the Midwest, but seeing the Midwest ultimately in a positive light, then you really understand the passage. So it's, she makes, well, let me just do this. I'm gonna read it to you. And as I'm reading it, you're doing really quick annotations. So it's, I'm gonna read it kind of at the pace that it would make sense to read it if you were actually doing this timed in 40 minutes. And as I'm reading it, you're going to be kind of underlining things that stand out to you as potential things you could write about, or circling, or really quickly to the side writing pun, you know, so that you can come back to it. So I'm going to read it at the pace that I think it would work to read it on the test. All right. First, you have to read the prompt. Don't ever skip the actual prompt. It says, the passage below is from The Horizontal World, Deborah Marquardt's 2006 memoir about growing up in North Dakota, which is part of the Midwest. Read the passage carefully, then in a well-written essay, analyze the strategies Marquardt uses to characterize the upper Midwest. She's kind of treating the Midwest, like her setting, like a character. So what kind of character does the Midwest have? Driving west from Fargo on I-94, the freeway that cuts through the state of North Dakota, you'll encounter a road so lonely, treeless, and devoid of rises and curves in places that it will feel like one long-held pedal steel guitar note. If your tires are in proper alignment, you'll only need to tap your steering wheel to keep your car on a straight ahead path. Now you are driving deep into the square states. This is the way I recently heard a comedian describe the column of states it holds down the center of the country. The Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, a region that spawns both tornadoes and Republicans. TV news anchors often hail from this part of the world, as do the most innocent female characters in movies and primetime TV dramas. Being blonde, fresh-faced, and Midwestern makes their descent into ruthless behavior in places like Los Angeles and New York all the more tragic. We are the folks presidents talk to when times require, Sylvia Griffith Wheeler wrote in her poem Earthlings. Networks make up women to look like us, who will not trade their bleaches, soaps for anything. This is a region that contains both Garrison Keillor's Lake Wobegon. You look at the little footnote and it says this is a fictional town in Keillor's radio show, A Prairie Home Companion, where all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. And the Coen brothers' Fargo, down below, 1996 movie. The macabre land of murder by wood chipper. Aside from this myth-making, the Midwest is a place that's been considered devoid of stories, a flyover region one must endure to get to more interesting places. Despite its easy inclines and farmable plains, the region was equally unimpressive to its earliest assessors. In the 1820s, Edwin James, the official chronicler of Major Stephen Long's survey, declared the region a dreary plain, wholly unfit for cultivation, and of course, uninhabitable by a people depending upon agriculture for subsistence. It was Edwin James who dubbed the area between the Mississippi and the Rockies the Great American Desert, an indignity from which the region has struggled to recover ever since. This is the heartland, the place where Jefferson's idea of a rectangular cadastral survey, the land grid system outlined in the Land Ordinance of 1785, found its most perfect confluence of longitude, latitude, and countryside, so well behaved that it laid itself down in neat, even squares for the surveyor's instruments. Soon enough, as the surveying expedition moved west, the neatness of the grid was foiled by steep valleys, rivers, foothills, and mountains. But here, in the monotonous square states, the survey subdivided the land easily into square upon square, each measuring 6 miles by 6 miles. What followed, Richard Manning observed in Grassland, which is a book about the prairie, was a war on roots. The place was a mess, and it became a young nation's job to fix it with geometry, democracy, seeds, steam, steel, and water. Such is the situation all of my great-grandparents and grandparents encountered when they arrived between the years of 1885 and 1911. They traveled to the Midwest by train to what was then the end of the line, Eureka, South Dakota. Eureka, from the Greek word heureka, meaning I have found it, is reported to have been the word that Archimedes cried when he found a way to test the purity of Hero's crown. My grandparents wouldn't have known the etymology of the word, but they would have felt it, the anticipation, as they waited, along with the other immigrants from Russia, to receive their allotments of land. Okay, I'm going to give you, that's about the pace you could read it while still like sort of understanding what some of the strategies are. I am going to give you 1 minute to write down just the argument, not about the rhetorical strategies, just what do you think her argument is about what the Midwest is like? Just right at the bottom of the page. Oh, you know what? Write it on your white page. Sorry, start the timer over again. The white page where you just wrote the paragraph, take a space, write the argument. Okay, go. No, just your argument that you think Marquardt has in her passage there. What is she arguing about the Midwest? In one sentence. we got it. Okay. You need 15 more seconds? 15 seconds, go. Oh, all right. If you were able to do it in that time, that's super fast. That's great. I've got mine up here. I say, while the Midwest is typically seen as boring and naive, Marquardt argues that these qualities give it a hopeful sense of possibility. That's what I think the argument is here. Yeah.
I said that the Midwest isn't dubbed as both places, it's even become the but I feel like it doesn't have to be, but it's kind of like subjected to it.
Okay, so it's subjected to that kind of viewpoint, right? What about the last part here, though, where she talks about her parents and the eureka part of it?
So I see that like that exists, and like that was kind of a 1911 kind of when it had vote. So I guess we're at the whole, let's say with that, like she wants to have that movement of hope.
Got it.
But I just feel like the paragraphs preceding that,
Mhm.
where it talked about like this is where we spawn Republicans and tornadoes. This
Yeah.
is where like every blonde anchor ever comes from. Like to me, that's like there's only certain things that can come from the prairie, and they won't let anything else.
Okay, great. So maybe at one point it was this place of hope, but that's been completely destroyed by stereotypes of the region, basically. Yeah, I agree with that. That could be an argument here. Yeah, let's see.
I found it very interesting that at the end, she compared these the Western states to Archimedes
Uh-huh.
and the crown, because kind of like what even Noah was saying, is that it is deemed to be a very like boring place.
Mhm.
I put down for my argument that she believes that the Midwest has a lot more to offer than what outsiders will think of it.
Yeah, good.
Because they all think of big city places instead of what else they can get from a different place. People are just so close-minded. That's not what I'm trying to point out. And so it's interesting that you compare this seemingly very uninteresting place to something that was so grand
Yes.
to someone else. So it kind of makes like the audience think, huh, I wonder why she might be comparing these two. Maybe like something is actually there that we're not focusing in on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
One thing that I think of is like, so Utah's not Midwest, but like.
Kind of
everyone is,
works
like,
the same way,
we're
yeah.
close. So like everyone thinks of like, I don't know Utah, but like the people in Utah are like, oh my gosh, we love Utah, like oh my, like it has like different, like has good weather, like St. George. So like there's like
Yeah,
all these things
yeah.
that like only the people appreciate about Utah.
Good.
And everyone else is like, why would I go there? So the Midwest kind of has that similar feeling. But like just as like so like states that you don't think about first, kind of like Ohio, I don't think it's on that list, but it's kind of all those.
Yeah.
So to me, there's kind of like something we're making it out to be. Like if we were to sell this to a travel agency, we'd be like, come to Utah, like look at the
Right.
snow, look at the
Right.
like all of that, right? And so to me, she's kind of arguing that point while residing, like we know what Utah's known for, and it's not like this one thing, right? Midwest is one thing. They're boring. We're Mormon. Like
Yeah.
that's like that's the only thing your state can be known for. And so we try to emphasize like, no, we have like culture in Salt Lake, or we have like the rocks in St. George. Be like, no.
Yeah.
no.
And I think an important part of this is that she's not denying that this stuff is true about the Midwest. Like she's like, yeah, they are square. They are boring. Yeah, they are like more conservative out there. Yeah, there are tornadoes. But then she says, okay, but just because it has all of those things, like Noah said, it doesn't mean that there's more to that, or that that the people who live there might see it in a different light. Ben?
One line I really liked is she says that it's a flyover region that one must fear to get more interesting places. That immediately brought to mind like Wizard of Oz. Like,
Yeah.
like popular like opinion has made it somewhere that you don't want to be and you want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, right. It's like we think of the beginning of Wizard of Oz that is like all in black and white and just like dust everywhere and just like awful old looking people, right? And yet the coasts in this case are like Oz. And I think that's part of what makes us see that she's being satirical at the beginning of this, that she's not fully accepting the negative way she talks about it. So if your argument, when you said what her argument was only about how negative the Midwest is, then you missed the satire of it. You missed the last little part. And that's where people missed points on this particular essay, was they would say, oh, she hates the Midwest. She says it's boring and awful there. But there's more to it than that. Like there's, at the end of this, she talks about the possibility and the sense of possibility her ancestors had. Yeah.
What I'm reading, it seems like she already thinks it's like perfect. So she talks about how like where it's like depicted where all men are strong and men are good looking.
Yeah.
And then like it talks about how surveyors need to go up stuff because it's already finished.
Yeah. Yeah. And at first she's talking about this in this negative way, like almost saying that it's like cookie cutter. It's boring because it's so perfect. At the end, she's like, because everything fit into these neat little squares, my grandparents got to have land. And so it's exciting, that kind of like perfection that it has. Yeah, Abby.
I almost think that's where I would contrast your argument though, because like at the end when it is talking about like his grandparents and like all this stuff, they've already like had the possibility. They've already like grew it to like almost as much
So
as it
now
could
it's
be,
settled.
so now it's just like has all these things that work for them. It's great. And so there's like I don't really feel there's like a hopeless possibility. I feel like
Yeah, and that's
That
kind of
goes
what
back to
Noah
what-
started with too. Yeah, that like
Like
it's been
satisfying?
imposed upon.
yeah,
Yeah.
like satisfying.
Yeah. I think that both of those arguments could exist at once, actually. So I wouldn't, if you had that argument, as long as you were talking about the fact that it had some hope at some point as a positive quality, then I think you'd be right. Yeah, Noble.
But it's kind of like, I hate this so much about them. I hate this, but they're mine. So I love it.
Yeah, I think it is like that. Yeah, like my sister, I can say as much negative stuff as I want about her, but as soon as my husband says something, I'm like, no, she's good for these reasons, you know? So yeah, it's that idea of like sense of ownership creates positivity. Yeah. Okay, we've kind of been talking about the things, but I want you now to make a little list of the different rhetorical strategies you think she's using in this essay. So make a little list of all the rhetorical strategies you see her using. A little bullet point list.
I just don't know what I just don't know what anything is.
That's okay, you can just describe it. So like, that she characterized me as boring, or that she has a humorous style, or illusions is a good one. Quotes people.
Stereotypes, that's a good word.
You don't have to make it negative, like a
Yeah.
It's from Archimedes is from older British mythology. So I think we still would call it mythology though. Yeah. How would you explain it to someone? I would say juxtaposition is putting two things together and it creates meaning in the, it creates meaning by placing two things next to each other. Yeah, Archimedes was real. We know he was a scientist. We don't know much about him. Archimedes. Yeah, he is an owl. I love ducks. Plus they mate for life. That's sweet.
It's a well written.
They do, that's right.
My kids just write, I used to just write that say not well.
I know you're what you're talking about, but that was
Obviously, just like.
That's like that will feel like one.
Okay, let's make a list together now. What are some things that she does in this essay that are rhetorically significant? Yes. Okay, personification. Where's the personification?
So like you explained, it says like characterizes, so it kind of like gives the state its own like kind of humanity, and then when it says like it spawns when it doesn't
Cool.
it's doing something. It
Yeah.
describes it as well behaved.
Okay, good. So there's multiple instances, and this is why I like this one so much. It's a pattern of personification. Okay, Savannah.
I said there's juxtaposition of the part that's talking about like the family. Like they are super good looking and then the other one, what is it? Yeah.
Ah, okay,
Like
good.
murders and then like the really, and then the other family's like really good looking. Like above average.
Okay, awesome. So it's in the characterization of the Midwest. I think I'm gonna erase that, but it's in multiple places too, because there's juxtaposition when it is talking about Major Stephen Long's survey saying it's dreary, plain, a dreary plain, wholly unfit for cultivation. But then contrast that with Jefferson and how excited he is about the squares, so there's that juxtaposition in multiple places. Yes, Rachel.
There's like kind of stereotypes, like the blonde, sing blonde.
Good, yeah, she uses stereotypes here. Awesome, yeah. Yeah, okay, good. So it's, yes, there are very straight roads, but you probably still need your hands on the steering wheel, right? So we're not gonna call it hyperbole, because there's still that foot in reality, but it is exaggeration. And there's a series of exaggerations as you go. Yeah, Noah.
I say caricature, because I feel like when she says, all the men are strong, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, all the children are above average, and then when she says, being blonde, fresh faced, and Midwestern, and in the most innocent female characters, I feel like it's all kind of caricature.
Yeah.
Because it's like the physical description that matches everyone, she says. She feels like everyone is, or she at least doesn't feel this way, but like it's seen this way.
Yeah.
That every woman is blonde and innocent, and every man is like big and like that's kind of what she's looking for. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's only one kind of man, only one kind of woman.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Maxwell.
She uses illusion, if not like directly referencing something. Like with these, or she just directly quotes from like different books.
Yeah, okay, Archimedes, Jefferson, Garrison Keillor, we've got Stephen Long,
Richard Mann. That's called illusion.
Manning.
Like
So I think an illusion is more like where she says, and the Coen brothers Fargo, the macabre land of murder by wood.
Illusion's like setting up a story, right?
So yeah, so here's the difference. An illusion is when you don't directly reference something. You assume that your audience has a whole lot of understanding about that thing, and they'll be able to bring it to the text. So if you haven't seen, has anyone seen the movie Fargo? Oh man, you've seen it, Zoe? It is such a good movie. It's so good. Anyway, it's maybe not appropriate for high school, but it's really good. If you know about the movie Fargo, then you get the wood chipper reference. If you do not know about the movie Fargo, which none of you know about, you don't get the wood chipper reference. So that's an illusion because she's not explaining it to you. I'll just say at the end of Fargo, they put someone in a wood chipper. It's very violent. So that's what it's talking about here, right? Murder by wood chipper, but you don't get enough information to fully understand it, right? So let's take a pause. If you don't know about Fargo, which only Zoe knows about, so none of the rest of you, then you would not write about that illusion. Because you don't know the illusion, right? So you can't talk about what it adds to the piece. There's going to be passages where you won't get some of the illusions, and that's okay. Just write about something else. A reference, on the other hand, is when she is giving us all the information that we need in this to be able to understand what the reference is doing here. So I do not know who Edwin James is or Major Stephen Long, but she gives me the quotes and she tells me who they are enough that I'm able to understand what they're doing here. So that's the difference between illusion and context. Yeah.
So then like, oh, sorry.
Oh, Elle first. Yeah.
So I think I learned about illusion like Shakespeare units because he like will reference the Bible so much,
Mhm.
and he just like
And it's like, you know the Bible, I
Yeah.
can just reference
so
the
it
story.
just we kind of like say like a biblical character's name but not like the story, and then it
Yeah.
that in itself says something. But as a reference for like a quote, like here when he like says like that in the quote and then kind of
And
tells the story, yeah.
A quote, a directly naming, and an explaining who they are.
Okay.
So if Shakespeare were to say, you know, it's like Samson who had his hair cut off because Delilah betrayed him, that would be more like a reference than an illusion.
Illusion is just like saying a character's name.
Yeah, like, oh man, Parker, he's a real Samson. Okay. Yeah, Ben.
There's a simile in the first paragraph. It will feel like one long-held.
Yeah, good.
Steel guitar.
Good. Simile. All right. What else we got in here? Yeah, Lexi?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So would the very first line be considered an illusion? Because they're assuming we know what I-94 is? Or I don't know.
That's more just acknowledgement of who the audience is.
Okay.
Who do you think the audience is supposed to be for this piece, by the way?
High schoolers and now it's
People
like
yeah,
Western
people
Midwest.
outside of the Midwest.
Outside the Midwest. Why do you say that?
Because it talks about them like traveling. There are lots of good references that they travel through just to get to another place.
All right,
Like,
cool.
like you're driving west, like you're driving west, yeah, from.
She's trying to explain to us why there might be an appreciation for the Midwest at some point, you know, like why it's like, oh, I could say bad things about it, but you can't. So it makes sense then that she is talking to non-Midwesterners. But let me ask this, do you think that people who read this would be outside, like not non-Americans, an international audience?
Dude.
No, like for example, Spain, right? Like it's not, there's stuff in here that you're like, I don't know, like that's not familiar to me, right? Yeah, so I think the audience here is supposed to be directed to Americans who would then understand the I-94 reference. So I don't necessarily think we'd call that a reference or allusion. That's just sort of like assumptions about who the audience is. Maxwell?
Well, he makes the distinction that he's driving west, so I would go even further to say like the eastern states.
Great point. And what do we know about Eastern states?
Very urban and full of cities.
Urban, I think in the Midwest, they might call them elites,
Less traditional.
less traditional.
But also referencing Republicans for like Midwestern, so it's the opposite of that.
Yeah, to like make fun of the Midwest, it says spawns Republicans and tornadoes. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, good catch, Maxwell. All right. Okay, yeah. So another juxtaposition there, tornadoes and Republicans,
Kind of like the whirlwind.
I
effect.
think reveals a lot about who she thinks her audience is and who she is too. Yeah, that she would say like, same, they both destroy America. Just kidding. I think that's sort of the point here though. What are some other strategies she uses? Let's get two more. I like, oh yeah, no.
No one is separation sector.
Good, I like that.
This is since it's her people, you know, we've talked a lot about that.
Yeah.
That's her saying like, oh, like she can talk about them and it's not rude. Like not only like I'm only like make fun of it, but also like like yesterday this kid was complaining about being left-handed and I'm left-handed and I was just sitting next to him like writing my left hand, like, man, it sucks to be left-handed, doesn't it? Like here's someone who can say something about that and people are gonna try to catch it.
Good.
Right. So like
Good.
breaking satire is like I'm poking fun of myself.
I'm one of
It's not
you.
even like I'm poking fun of my culture, it's like I'm included kind of thing.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
she's probably fun.
Yeah, I agree. Abby?
I just have a question. So like with the satire, isn't that okay? Well, like these are like types of writing and like finding it satire, like the overall. Like, is this a satire piece? Like,
Yeah.
even point it out.
Satire would be an overarching sort of genre.
Kind of like an argumentative essay.
Mhm. Or a Bildungsroman or a romance.
Like, I guess we
It's-
could use that one because it's specific.
But you could just say satire, that she uses satire, yeah, but you would probably want to point out the things that make it satirical.
So maybe we like reference that in like our beginning paragraph.
Yeah, like in the intro, this is, when we do soapstones. Occasion is the what, when, where. The what is satire. That's the genre of it. Yeah, it's a memoir, but it's also satire. Yeah, Maxwell.
So you use satire to make a class two, class two thesis statement where like
Yeah,
each of these things helps to create satire and you explain how it
yes.
does that.
Yes, if you were to include it in your thesis and you were like, she uses character stereotypes and puns to create a satirical piece about the Midwest, yeah, you would be going into that type 2 of thesis statement. Good memory. Yeah. All right. I think we've got a lot up here. We did start with the original pun of calling it a square state.
Oh, also,
Yeah.
title. It's called the horizontal world. I don't know if that has
Oh,
anything to
good.
do with it. That reminds me of like flat plane page.
I like that too. Yeah, so just the title itself.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so what I want you to do now is I'm gonna time you. Oh, you have 10 minutes. I'm gonna time you and give you 2 minutes to write a thesis statement. So you've already written her argument. You maybe have gotten a better understanding of her argument through our conversation, so you can change that argument up if you want. And then you're gonna choose some of these or some that you noticed on your own. You're gonna choose some strategies that she uses to create that argument. Now, when you're choosing strategies, try not to do that just arbitrarily. Like, oh, she uses reference, character, exaggeration, whatever, I just need to talk about 3. No, try to pair it with what you said in the argument. So for example, she depicts it as boring, naive. I'm gonna talk about stereotypes and puns for that. A sense of possibility. I'm going to talk about the allusions and references and the caricature for that. So I'm going to try to choose things that really are building up the argument that you chose. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So 2 minutes to try and write a thesis statement on that white piece of paper, the lined piece of paper. You have to go so fast. You have to just go with your gut.
Oh my God.
Go. Go.
Time's ticking.
Go.
Okay, good. Were you able to do it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
Okay.
Don't-
All right. That's So when you are actually doing this on the test, we're going to practice this more and more as to do it timed. You would want to spend no more than 7 minutes reading the passage and planning your thesis. We did it all here in like a half hour. You'd condense that down. So you read it carefully, you write your thesis, and even if it's not perfect, you have to go with it. That's your thesis, you know? From here, I'm going to have you pretend that you have to write this thing. You are going to write the very first paragraph of the Marquardt's essay. So sorry, you've got your topic, sorry. You wrote your intro. Let me stand up. I'm distracted. You wrote your intro. You're pretending that you've written your intro. You've explained who the audience is, what the context is, all of this stuff. You wrote your thesis statement that went at the end of your intro. You are now going to try to write the first body paragraph of this essay. The first body paragraph should be about something that probably occurs in the first part of the essay. You don't want to jump to the end right away. So you're probably going to be talking about the way that she first characterizes the Midwest and what that's like. And you're going to choose one. It's the same as we did here. You're going to choose one quality that she's depicting, one little part of your argument, and then you're going to describe it with one strategy that you think she's using. So let's say that she typically paints the Midwest as boring and naive. I'm going to write one paragraph about how it's boring. And I think she does that using stereotypes. So my whole paragraph is going to be how she uses stereotypes to characterize the Midwest as boring. So I'm narrowing it down so that my one paragraph is just about one thing. Okay, you got 5 minutes to write as much as you can of that. Yes. So we have some variations. Was I? Looked it up. A good teacher would look it up. Kind of. I'll explain here in a second. I don't know, man. Sounds like an editor problem. Try and write as much as you can. Keep going. Okay, wrap up your sentence. Okay, so I said you're turning this in kind of, but not. So this is the start of the work that you need to do for next week. So on December 14th, which is Tuesday, you have an essay that's due called Satire Rhetorical Analysis. That's what this is. You are writing about this Marquardt passage, and you're writing a satire rhetorical analysis. So basically, we use this time period to get you started on that. If you still have questions about like whether you're headed in the right direction, come see me before that. Yeah.
No, it's. It's a hard one.
See ya. So turn in what you did for today so that you get participation points, and then you're going to use it on the essay that's coming up.